Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell. This is bullshit. You're the one who made the setting in your head. You just have to flip the switch and enjoy life. I knew from a series of unspoken phrases that you had something going on the personal front, and I wasn't wrong. Lisa exhaled with relief. I had hit the bullseye. Yes, I have a young man, but for lack of practical experience, I do not know how to behave with him. Like naturally, you don't have to come up with clever moves. If you really like a person, tell your secret hero. Do you like it? A sort of blissful smile appeared on the girl's face. Cindy, I don't know exactly, but I think I do. He makes me feel at ease. We can talk about anything. And honestly, I don't want to leave him. That's a very good start. And that's how love most often starts. But you shouldn't lose your head. The warnings of a friend flew by and didn't settle in the mind of a woman in love at the Mariinsky. That she was in love with Sebastian was beyond any doubt. Their first meeting resembled a plot from the novels they had read earlier. The second-year student needed to prepare an essay urgently, so she went to the university library. Sebastian was already hard at work on a similar assignment at a neighboring desk. They had crossed paths in the confusing labyrinths of the university before, but they didn't know each other intimately. This time, when Lisa appeared, Sebastian greeted her with a gesture. She answered the guy with a nod of her head with her neatly styled hair in braids and pigtails. Engrossed in their work, the young people did not notice how it became completely dark outside the windows. The reading room was empty. The librarian asked them several times to leave the room, but they asked for another minute. Realizing that her entreaties had no effect on the fanatical students, the woman turned off the lights. It was unexpected. The young people were confused and tried to find a way out in the darkness. But in an unfamiliar room, obstacles in the form of chairs, tables, and other furniture were at every turn. Sebastian laughed. And I now feel like a hero of a computer game to go to the next level, which there is a strict aunt waiting behind the door. You and I will have to hit a dozen bumps. Lisa was amused too. Their predicament is not easy. But if you and I don't make it in time, the scoreboard above the door will light up and we'll be stuck here forever. So we have to hurry before the nice lady locks the door. Give me your hand. With two of us, it'll be easier to get around all the obstacles, and we'll get an extra shot. The young man shook the girl's hand firmly and was the first to enter the path of the unknown. Immediately, the rumble of falling furniture was heard. Immediately, the light flashed, and in the doorway there was a formidable silhouette of the librarian. What on earth are you stupids doing? Sebastian nonchalantly answered the question with a question. Why did you turn off the lights? You thought we might break arms and legs in the dark. How many times do I have to warn you? What could I do if you don't understand Russian words? Lisa had no idea that a dialogue of just questions could be so interesting. In the end, the very unkind aunt promised to complain about them to the dean's office. Our university is for decent people. Such famous scientists have studied here. And you. We still have a long way to go. Who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, you'll remember how you kicked out 2 Nobel laureates from your library. And believe me, you will be very ashamed of your bad deed. Sebastian gave the lady a bow, bewildered at the confusion, and they ran laughingly out into the street. Now I must see you off. Such a vivid acquaintance requires continuation. You don't mind that? Excitement filled soul and body, and Lisa in a joking tone replied, if we all started the game together, then, logically, we should move to all subsequent levels together. You know, that's a very apt comparison. But still, I really want our relationship to grow into something more than a computer game. I mean, we're not painted people. We're real people. I'm not against this development either. But there is one thing. The young man looked at the girl with surprise. Let me guess. Are you married? No. Then you're an alien, and your space transportation is coming for you right now. Also no. Then I give up. We haven't even met for sure. but now we're gonna make up for it. Besides, I know your name is Lisa, and I'm Sebastian." Lisa laughed heartily at the jokes of the guy, and from this on her face, there was a blush in her eyes, daring and sparkling. The young man openly admired her. "Lisa, if you only knew how beautiful you are. I have never met such a beautiful girl before." It was the first time Lisa had ever heard such words, and she felt dizzy with happiness. After only a few weeks, Kevin and Sebastian felt a strong attachment. The young man, in his usual joking manner, explained this phenomenon as follows: "Lisa, you and I are lucky to have met each other so quickly. Have you heard the beautiful legend about the novelties?" "Of course I have." "And you're saying we're part of the same whole. Do you think otherwise? It's just that we're not scattered around the world like the others, but we're dumped in one place. I guess it was the end of the day, and they had no other option. But that could happen if we don't take the chance the angels gave us." "Sebastian, you're always talking in riddles. Isn't it enough that we meet every day?" The girl felt the same loving gaze of the young man again. He gently drew her to him and kissed her. "I don't want to date enough. I want more than that. I want to see you every minute, to feel your breath." Lisa was silent and anxiously awaited the continuation of this love song. But Sebastian concluded his confession succinctly. "Let's get married." "Sebastian, and school? And what will we tell our parents?" "Lisa, listen to me. You and I are adults, and we have to make our own decisions. Is a passport stamp a barrier to getting a diploma? Probably not." "Exactly. And tell me, why should you and I be held to a standard? Don't you want to do something without being prompted to make important decisions yourself?" "Sebastian, I'd like to, but how would we live normally? Trust me, there are no problems that can't be solved. My parents got married when they were students, and then I came along a year later. But that didn't stop them from getting an education and successfully moving up the career ladder. Imagine how surprised everyone will be when they find out that you and I are already a family." Perhaps it was the desire to surprise everyone that drove the young people when they decided to get married in secret without saying a word to anyone. They applied. Spring came and the whole world was born in blooming outfits. The hearts of the two lovers were also filled with spring feeling. Only on the eve of the important event, Lisa told everything to Cindy. Her friend couldn't come to her senses for about 10 minutes. "Lisa, have you gone mad? And how does it manifest itself? Well, for example, tell me, what are you going to go to the registry office in jeans and a t-shirt? And instead of a photo, and your head will be adorned with a baseball cap with some stupid English inscription on it." The bride's confidence faded a little, but she didn't give up. "You make it sound like I have nothing to wear. I have a decent, classic suit and a good pair of shoes. By the way, I came to you hoping to find support and help. Did you? And I owe you an emergency fix for your shortcomings. Tell me, what sins do you give your parents for? Don't you get it in your formula-filled head? What's the most important event in their lives? The wedding of their only daughter. I don't know how things are in Sebastian's family, of course, but I'm sure his folks would be shocked too." Clara realized that her friend was right. "And what would you do if you were me? I'll never be in your shoes, because I'm not that frivolous, but I would advise you to reschedule." "No, Cindy, they say it's bad luck." At Cindy's insistence, the newlyweds to be urgently called their parents to make sure the wedding ceremony was as good as the others. They had to use a rental service, but the parents of the bride and groom never fully came to their senses. They hardly understood what was going on. Therefore, all questions had to be settled by Cindy. When the perpetrators of the commotion and put their signatures in the registry office, David, not without irony, asked, "And where do our newlyweds plan to spend their honeymoon?" Lisa and Sebastian looked at each other in confusion, but the new husband was more resourceful. "We'll pass our exams and go on a construction crew." John liked his son's idea of family life. "When I was his age, I was just as bold and brash." By the way, not a bad option for newlyweds. It's all about romance, living in tents, mosquitoes, shared meals, and a lot of very hard work. The man turned to the bride's parents. "I'm the one who's teasing their offspring about me. I got married when I was a student." Christina, Sebastian's mom, contributed to the discussion of an important issue. "John, that was a very different time. And now, look at all the ugly things going on around here. Sometimes you don't want to look." Miranda was agreeing out of a sense of female solidarity, and only David remained silent. The newlyweds sat quietly, silent. The important event was celebrated in a small restaurant, where there was no one else but the wedding party. Sebastian's mother continued to express her dissatisfaction with modern life, but she was clearly bringing the conversation to something more important. Finally, she easily pushed her husband away. "John, what are you all agonizing under your breath? You're not going to let our children wander around in tents, being eaten by merciless mosquitoes." John glanced in the direction of the newlyweds. "Christina, a construction crew is great. It's a great option for extreme athletes. If they're so independent, let them deal with their problems from now on and take responsibility for their rash actions." "But John is our only son," David calmly said. "Friends, let's raise our glasses to the young ones, even though they have put Piggy in our hands. Let's forgive them that little thing." Advice and love. Cindy cheerfully shouted bittersweet. After the toasts in honor of the newlyweds, Kevin's father took the floor again. "My wife and I have decided to take care of their lodgings. I've already booked a hotel room for 2 nights. Now we just need to find a cheap place to stay. They can't go to a hostel." John shook his head and repeated for the 3rd time in one evening that his son went to him. "It's not for nothing they say genes don't set a finger, for I am a son. Thank you, brother-in-law. I fully support you. Frankly, I really do not want to send their construction team somewhere closer to the swamps, but by the example of matchmaker forced to show mercy, we'll organize a trip for 2 to somewhere tropical." For the first time all evening, the newlyweds have raised their voices. "Yay, we're going on a real wedding trip, although not without adventure." Their married life began romantically, but the sweet period ended quickly and flowed these than later. Gray everyday life. The pitfalls of family life began to appear at once, although the parents always kept their shoulders in readiness to set them up in time. The young couple had a hard time. After all, lectures, credits, and sessions were not combined with a normal family life. And then there was pregnancy. Baranki forced to adjust plans for the near future. The future mother's well-being caused alarm, and Sebastian decisively stated, "We must take an academic." But the parents of the young couple were categorically against such a decision. Christina especially insisted on continuing her studies. "In no case should we take a break in their studies. Then it will be even more difficult." Miranda supported Sebastian's mom. "I'm going to take a well-deserved vacation in a few months. Of course, I still wanted to work, but for the sake of the children I will go as I should. I'll help them. Let them study, and I'll take care of my grandchildren." The young couple accepted such a generous gift with delight. But as time went on, more and more sacrifices were required. Kevin and Sebastian saw them as an obligatory step on the part of the older generation. Parental help made their lives so easy that after Kevin was born, they decided to have another child just 3 years later. This time there was a girl, in whom both grandmothers did not devote their souls. Miranda and Christina practically lived in the house of their children. What caused dissatisfaction with the men? John was the most resentful. "Christina, how many times do you have to coddle them? Don't you think our children are sitting on our heads and feet shining?" The woman tried to resist, but it was obvious that for several years she was very tired. "John, I understand your outrage, but who's going to help them if not us? Sebastian is traveling alone with 2 kids and a job, so let her quit her job and take care of her family. John, think about what you're saying. What are they gonna live on? You should have thought of that before. Besides, Sebastian makes good money, and if you moderate your appetites a little, you can live on his salary. Lisa, she's very talented and has a brilliant career ahead of her. A woman has to choose between work and family." Christina resented it. All these years living with you, I didn't realize, John, that you hold such beliefs. Lisa's parents also argued about it. Only the discussions weren't as heated. But despite the frankly dependent behavior of young people, the parents made more and more sacrifices on the altar of their family happiness. Meanwhile, the relationship between the spouses had also cracked. Sometimes Lisa did not recognize her husband. She could not understand where his cheerfulness and trademark jokes. More and more often the head of the family came home irritated and, not to spoil anyone's mood, locked himself in his office. The family has long since replaced the rented accommodation on their own house in the Moscow region. The purchase of real estate helped parents, although from the outside everything looked prosperous. But intuition told Lisa that the family structure of her happiness is not strong, and it is about to collapse. And soon the woman received confirmation that her premonitions did not fail her. When Sebastian returned from another business trip, she began to sort through his things as a habit. No, she found no traces of lipstick, and from the shirts of her husband did not emanate the scent of French perfume. But a small business card with a Kathy's phone number on it flew out of his pants pocket. It was not in the woman's plan to cause a jealous scene, and there weren't many women with that name in the world. After all, between this and the unknown Kathy and her husband could be simply a business relationship. Driven by the best of intentions, she put the blue card in the most prominent place. But the woman hadn't expected such a violent reaction from her husband. Sebastian shouted and waved his hands in indignation. "Didn't expect you, wife, that you rolled over to something as trivial as checking my pockets." The woman was dumbfounded by such an onslaught. "Sebastian, why are you yelling at me? That card just fell out of my pocket, and I don't recognize you lately. You haven't been the same." Scared by the parents yelling, Kevin came out of the nursery. "Mom, are you and Dad fighting?" "No, son, we're just talking. The girls said you were fighting, so I thought I'd take a look." "It's okay. Go to your room." The man calmed down a little, but he decided to set the record straight. "Lisa, I'm warning you if I see anything else." The woman's eyes darkened, and she wished she had followed Cindy's example. Now she wanted to scream at her husband, but she stifled her anger and cut off the torrent of threats and reproaches. "Don't you ever speak like that again. This is a warning." It worked on Sebastian. But from that day on, the relationship between the couple deteriorated completely. So Lisa decided not to tell Sebastian that she was pregnant again. Women did not lose hope that they're in a cozy home again shines star happiness. Not for nothing in the people say that trouble never walks alone. Tense relations in the family and unresolved issues with the third pregnancy supplemented another unpleasant event. No sooner had the New Year holidays died down than Sebastian's father called. "Son, urgently come with Mom. She is in intensive care." John did not explain over the phone what had happened, but from his tone Sebastian realized that the situation was serious. He threw to his wife, "I'll take the car." "Sebastian, but it's dangerous. The roads are icy. It's better to take the train." The man looked at his wife as if he wanted to live her with his eyes. "Don't you realize my mom's in intensive care? She's not well at all. Please don't yell at me. I'm worried about you. I'm sick and tired of your unrelenting concern." In the morning, the accident found out that Sebastian didn't make it. His mother-in-law died of a massive stroke without regaining consciousness. The husband took this loss very hard. He completely withdrew into his grief and stopped even communicating with his children. But Lisa had to urgently solve the issue of her pregnancy. It was impossible to postpone it. When her husband returned late at night, he found Lisa in the living room. He grumbled unhappily, "What are you doing up so late?" "Sebastian, we need to talk." "Not this. Can't you see I'm falling asleep? I'm not celebrating either. I have a life, and I've got kids on my hands. You don't take an interest in their affairs, and they resent you, especially Kevin." The man sank down tiredly on the couch next to his wife. For a second, it seemed to Lisa that everything was back to normal. Sebastian drew his wife to him. I'm sorry, I've been hurting you a lot lately. But it's the cost of our existence. My mom's death has taken a toll on me. Sebastian, I understand. I'm not myself sometimes, but we can't do this alone. That's for sure. Our moms have been a great help, and now we have to make it on our own. It's okay, we can do it. The older kids are big. So stop, Lisa. You said older kids. What does that mean? I'm pregnant, and I need to do something about it, because I'm critical. The woman didn't expect the news to send her husband into a frenzy. It amazes me that you're a grown woman, and sometimes you act like a 5-year-old child. Don't you realize we don't need this child? Why did you wait till the last minute? Tears, resentment, and hot streams flowed down my cheeks. Against her better judgment, Lisa began to justify herself to her husband. Well, you're always walking around, disgruntled. I was just afraid to approach you. I was waiting for the right moment. Then disaster struck, and one thing led to another. Sebastian pointed to his wife's stomach. That's where the real disaster is. You shouldn't have let this pregnancy happen. But let me tell you, I wasn't the only one involved. I get the feeling sometimes that you do things on purpose to spite me. Sebastian, how can you say that? It's our child together, and it's certainly not his fault. I'm not going to argue with you about this, but my decision is clear. You need to get rid of this pregnancy. We've had enough of 2 children. The next day, Lisa was in for another blow. She went to the clinic, and after a checkup, the doctor said, "Sweetheart, you're too late. Your due date is a good 14 weeks, and you'll soon feel the stirrings. So you're gonna have to have this baby." Well, my husband doesn't want to. I can't help it. What are you so afraid of? I can see from your story that you're not poor. Does another baby really burden you? Children are our joys. They are our continuity. After her doctor's appointment, Lisa decided to visit Cindy. She lived across town with her husband and her son Ivan, who was a year younger than Kevin. When she saw Lisa, she was overjoyed. Oh, how many years, how many winters. What wind brought you here? I heard you had an accident. I'm sorry for your loss. All these obligatory Cindy phrases, I said at once. Only then did she invite her friend into the house. Tell me what you've come to tell me. I'm having another baby. Well, that's great. You're tearing up. Sebastian is totally against it. He ordered me to get rid of this pregnancy. Life changes people beyond recognition. I mean, not so long ago, you were such a nice young man, a real role model. I watched your touching relationship and dreamed of such love. Clara shared my worries with my friend, and at the same time paid on her shoulder. Thank you, Cindy. For what? For what you are. Oh, come on. You don't have to worry too much about men. They're all like that, and you can't change it. You just have to know how to turn the situation in your favor. I don't know what you're trying to say. Well, for one thing, have a seizure or something. Make him worry. Thanks for the advice, but I can't do that. Suit yourself, but stop by if you need anything. Sebastian seemed to have forgotten about his conversation with his wife. He would leave again for business trips and then return, always in a bad mood. Bavaria tried to keep her balance for the sake of the children's peace of mind. The woman diligently threw wood into the almost dead fire of family happiness, but the fire did not want to ignite. 2 months passed and the growing belly became visible even under loose clothes. Once at dinner, my husband said with apparent calmness, "You still did your own thing." Sebastian, it was too late. No one wanted to do the operation. Isn't there any other way? Herbs and pills. Lisa was horrified. You're an educated man, and you're offering me medieval methods to get rid of your own child. If anything happens to me, have you thought of Kevin? The man was embarrassed. He realized he'd said something unnecessary. I'm sorry, I really did say something mean without thinking. Things calmed down for a while. In the summer, she gave birth to another baby boy in a bar, and Sebastian was even happy about his wife's gift. It's a coincidence that father and son have the same birthday. Christopher will grow up. We'll celebrate together. By the time he grows up, You'll be a grand old man. That's the wrong answer. I'm only 33 now. That's the age of Christ, which is symbolic in itself. They sell hard liquor in the store at 18. And the fact that doing some simple math, you're 51 years old, and that's the best age for a man. For the second time in the years of marriage, Lisa observed a miraculous transformation, always nagging, whose husband that former Sebastian, with whom she was easy and cozy. With all her strength, women tried to keep this fragile happiness. After work, Sebastian spent the whole evening with little Christopher. He played with him and rejoiced at his son's successes. Kevin also took an active part in the upbringing of the youngest member of the family. But this family idyll did not last long. Soon Sebastian started coming home at night again. One day he disappeared for 2 days. Her imagination painted the most terrible pictures, and Lisa began to call her husband's friends and colleagues. But no one knew where her husband had disappeared to. She already wanted to call the police to start a search for the missing man. How did Sebastian show up on his own? He brushed off the questions of his children, who were also worried about their father, with irritation. And he lashed out at his wife. "You're making a big fuss and scaring the kids. I'm scaring the kids. You disappeared from the house without a word to me. You could have called me. Or don't you care about anyone? Lisa, you're just annoying me with your habit of making things worse." Another woman would have realized the cause of our problems a long time ago. You're in naive ignorance, or pretending not to understand because it's more convenient. I'm sorry, what am I supposed to understand? Well, I'll tell you, but no offense. I'm sick of this gray existence. Look at yourself in the mirror. Haven't you ever been told you look like a gray mouse? You're not even trying to change. I'm sick of mediocrity. I want bright colors and bright feelings. She looked at Sebastian and couldn't believe it was him, her beloved husband, saying such hurtful words. "Sebastian, come to your senses. What are you talking about?" "I've already come to my senses, and that's why I'm leaving." The man took out a travel bag and began to throw his things into it. Lisa couldn't move. She could not believe that this was happening to her. "Sebastian, what about the kids?" "Don't worry about the kids. I'm taking care of them. And by the way, I'm being very noble because I'm leaving the house to you." "Where are you going?" "I mean, where are you going to live?" "That's none of your business. I've met a woman who makes my heart beat." With a confident gait, Sebastian headed for the door, but when he remembered something, he turned around to get the rest of his things. "I'll come back tomorrow. And don't try to look for me. We're breaking up for good. It's best for everyone." The door slammed. A minute later, there was a mighty roar of the engine, and the black SUV disappeared into the darkness of the winter night. "Mommy, Daddy left us." The daughter looked at her mother, fear in her eyes. "How are we going to live without Daddy now?" Kevin took his sister's hand. "We'll be fine. There are still real men in the house. Mom, if he comes, I won't let him in." Lisa, still hoping for the best, tried to soften the drama of the situation. "Son, you can't talk about Dad like that. He's not a father. He's a traitor." It was only a few days later that Lisa fully realized the extent of her personal catastrophe. Everything was falling out of her hands, and the children demanded a mother's care and attention. 1.5-year-old Christopher was particularly vulnerable, so Lisa was left with nothing else to do. "How do I call Cindy?" She rushed over. "You meet the rescue team. We'll stay with you for a couple days until things settle down." "Have you called your parents?" "No, it's not right to bother the old folks. Then, when things calm down, we can tell them everything. Who knows, maybe your Sebastian is the right guy." "Okay, I won't talk in front of the kids, but as a rule, most unfaithful husbands. Then beaten, humiliated, they go back to their nest. Sebastian's not coming back. You're almost 100% sure. So there's still a little hope for the return of the prodigal parrot." "I'm sorry. I didn't think it through." "Well, we'll see. Our head of household is at a training camp, so we're gonna be loud and happy. We're gonna stay with you guys. We'll save on utilities." Cindy winked at her friend, and she smiled at Cindy. I'm amazed at your ability to see the bright side of every situation, because I'm an optimist, and you need to do something about it. Otherwise, you're a mess." From that day on, Cindy took full responsibility for her friend's house and its tenants. She advised Lisa to take a vacation to get used to her new surroundings. Cindy actively set about transforming her friend's life. "Lisa, you need to completely change all your settings. I know it's hard, but you have to try." Lisa tried to resist the over-exuberant activities of her savior Nice. "Listen, Cindy, I'm about to turn 33, and I don't think it's possible. What you're suggesting. I agree that you have to do something about your appearance. You can buy fancy clothes, but how do you change yourself on the inside? If you want it bad enough, you can do anything. Motivated people who can do things that you can't believe. Of course, it's hard to do it alone, but I know someone who can help you." Lisa's alert. "I didn't think you'd send me to a therapist. What's wrong with that? People sometimes don't realize the seriousness of their problems. A competent therapist can determine the depth and cause of the problem at a glance." "No, I'm not going." "Calm down. I have a friend of mine. We studied together. He specializes in women's problems. But if you don't want to go, then I'll leave you alone. But I'd like you to do it. Trust me, you'll thank me later. And I have to think about it. So you can ride your mind-blowing car and think, and we'll cook dinner for the starving elves." Kathy enthusiastically bounced Cindy and me around, having so much fun. "What are elves?" "They are very small people, but they can do all sorts of wonderful things. They can even turn people into bugs. Well, they can only do that to a bad person." And with Aunt Betty, the women looked at each other. "Who's that?" Kathy looked at her mother and her friend as if they were bugs. "Like you don't know. Aunt Betty is Daddy's girlfriend. I saw her when Daddy and I went to the store to get food for Christopher. She had black hair, but I didn't like her." Cindy was interested in Kathy's story. "Why does she mean?" "No, she's faking it, telling me how cute she is, but her eyes are evil. My mom is 1,000 times prettier." Lisa's daughter's compliment made Lisa's heart feel better. "Okay, Cindy, I don't want to hear any more about doctor's aunts. I'm going to take your advice and go for a little breeze." Over 2 o'clock, Lisa circled the town. She sang songs, talked to her husband, who treated her for some Aunt Betty with black hair. And all the resentment of a silent night, she came home. The children were already asleep, and only Cindy was waiting for her in the kitchen. "Well, blowing off steam. Thanks for the advice. I'm feeling remarkably light right now. I'm going to take your option. I really need to change my life completely. The trouble is, the grayness has gotten into me and won't let me change." Lisa had never been so worried. She was waiting for her turn in a soft chair, more like a big ball, with the same soft, dim light pouring down on her from above. The atmosphere was very comfortable and the tension disappeared, but the door opened. A tall man in an expensive suit, the color of wet asphalt, invited her in. "Come in, please. Your friend and I are longtime buddies, and Cindy filled me in a bit on your history." Lisa nodded and felt a treacherous shiver run through her body. The man sat down across from her so that his brown eyes took in the full spectrum of the view. "Don't be afraid. I'm not a real doctor." "Who is?" "Simply put, I'm a problem specialist. I know where they hide and how to deal with them. That's all. Isn't that enough? See, you've even stopped shaking. That's a good thing, so we can communicate more easily. Lisa, I should introduce myself, Charles. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you. I love the company of women in general. But it's not because I'm a sucker or a slacker. It's just that there really is a mystery in every woman. Sometimes she's the cause of serious problems, and you know how to solve them. Do you always succeed? I'm not gonna lie to you. Not always, but a lot depends on trust. If a client trusts me as a specialist, a positive result is usually guaranteed. And how long will the treatment last? And how much will it cost me? Lisa, this is not a treatment in the direct sense of the term. I have been dealing with the problems of modern women for a long time. and I have my own system of solutions. No medications, all surgeries and other types of influence will not threaten you either. Then what is the point? You and I will try to find the key to your personal mystery, which is hiding inside. Although she didn't fully understand what Charles was saying, she was intrigued by his proposal. I agree, and I'll do whatever you say. That's fine. Then from tomorrow, you start keeping a diary. Buy a general school notebook in the Department of Goods and write in it all your thoughts, fears, worries. Be sure to record events in the house family and at work. In other words, write down in a notebook everything that comes to mind. And what will come out of it, we will see together later. But I'm sure it will be entertaining. Did you like to write essays in high school? Yes. I wrote for half the class. I couldn't say no, even though I knew it was wrong. And you blame yourself for that? Yes, a little bit. My husband left me with 3 kids and I can't shake the guilt. I'll definitely help you. But first, you have to get creative. Lisa bought a notebook and a whole pack of pens. She thought Charles was very strange, but she decided to try his method on herself. At home, she opened the notebook and froze. Her mind was completely blank. She took them away. So Lisa, what's next? And then it occurred to her that the first entry should be a description of this very fear, the fear of the white sheet. When Lisa looked up, she realized that it had been 2 hours, no less. Lisa looked in amazement at the notebook, in which at least 20 pages had been written down. What a mother you gave me. She quickly turned off the light and went to bed. Memoirs are memoirs about sleep and work. In the morning, Lisa almost overslept. But she had no panic. She ran merrily around the house. Pushing the children up the stairs, Cindy's lurched Cindy appeared. She watched her friend in amazement. Var, what's the matter with you? What are you carrying yourself like a propeller? Oh, Cindy, good morning. Come have breakfast with us. Cindy kept watching Lisa, while Lisa was simultaneously dyeing her eyelashes and telling Kevin what to buy after school. When Lisa arrived at work, she realized that she was missing her notebook. It turns out there is so much going on around her, and she hadn't seen it before. Now the woman in her head instantly compiled her attitude to what was happening, and very much did not want to forget it all. Take, for example, their janitor. He smiled every morning, but invariably without opening his mouth. She used to think it was just a peculiarity of the man. And then it turned out that the janitor just had a constant breathalyzer. Lisa had disliked him, but someone on the staff said that that transition hurt the whole family, so it's easier for him to live like that. The week flew by. Cindy looked with interest at how her friend in the evenings diligently writes something in a notebook. One day she couldn't take it anymore. Look, you look like a schoolgirl. All that's left is your tongue. Lisa laughed. You know, I was so fascinated by what Charles suggested that I think I might write a book. Cindy sat down across from her. So what's the deal? Go ahead and write it. Oh, come on. What book? Cindy calmly poured herself some water from a glass. I can't see why not. But Cindy, I'm not a writer. No answer accepted. No one is born one. A writer is immediately given. Oh, come on. Who cares about the experiences of a gray mouse? Cindy grinned. I've never understood why you don't like yourself. Do I? Why don't I love myself? But her friend didn't let her finish. But look, you know perfectly well that you have the most ordinary appearance. But you're smart and could not fail to realize that nowadays you can make anything out of such appearance. It's only worth spending a little money on a makeup stylist. Next, everyone always predicted you a stunning career, but you had Sebastian at the top of your list. I can't understand why. And now you didn't even think about what I said. You just said you couldn't do it. And why didn't you answer my question? Lisa was, frankly, confused. She hadn't expected her friend to say that. Cindy. Why Cindy? Who would tell you all this if not me? Lisa stared confusedly in front of her. It seemed the shakeups in her life were just beginning. She wrote even longer today, writing about herself, about Cindy, about their meeting, about the fear that was in her as she was dragged to the street bathroom, fell asleep with notebook in hand. The next day, she had to visit Charles. She waited again in a kind of frantic excitement, and when he sat down in front of her, she immediately calmed down. "But what? How are we doing? Don't be shy. Tell me. Even if you've only written 4 pages, that's already progress." Lisa suddenly laughed. "You know, Charles, until I started writing all this down, I was sure I was living a boring, gray life. Now my confidence is shaken." A man suddenly said, "Lisa, has anyone ever told you? What a charming smile you have." "No, I don't know. I don't remember." She was embarrassed for some reason and put the notebook in front of him. He took it in his hands, looked at her in surprise. "Oh, you're good. What's up? Let's deal with what hasn't stopped gnawing at you." Lisa shook her head. "You know, I'd like you to read this without me, and then maybe we can talk about it." "Well, that's fine. You don't think you're done yet? Do you have more to write?" She nodded her head. "I never realized that there are so many different big and small events around you if you don't just list what happened in a day. And if you reflect on it, you sometimes come to the most unexpected conclusions. That's good. Tell me, has your attitude toward any of these events changed since you wrote about them?" Lisa nodded. "I saw a lot of things from the outside. You know, it even seemed to me that I could change some things, help some things. So what is it? Don't be afraid to offer your help. Don't be afraid to do things you haven't done before. You're about to change, aren't you?" They talked for about an hour. Charles didn't seem to say anything, but she felt really energized. Lisa ran into the store and wanted to buy a notebook, but after some thought, she decided to get 3. If she barely had enough for a whole notebook for a week, how much more would she need? No one knows. She walked out and wanted to go to her car, but the sign for the Lily Beauty Salon caught her eye. She had always loved lilies. Lisa hesitated. She always went to the same hairdresser, the same manicurist. Then she walked resolutely to the car, put the notebooks on the seat, and closed the car. "Hello. Come in, please." A woman of her years looked at her, except she was bright and interesting, and even though her hair color was a little off, and her lips a little brighter than decorum dictated. But the woman was a real eye-catcher. After Lisa sat down in the chair, the woman asked, "What are we gonna do?" "No. You know," Lisa turned to her. "I'd like to change things. I've had enough of this." "Oh, that's very interesting." She turned Lisa to the mirror and stared at her reflection thoughtfully as she continued talking. "I studied and then worked in the Capitol. I studied not just to be a hairdresser, but a master of images. Then I fell in love and got married. I moved here. But apart from the details, no one here wants to do anything chemical. No, don't think I regret anything. I love my husband very much, but sometimes you just want something like this. Wedding images are the only thing that takes a little professional pressure off. That's it. I know what I have to do. My name is Adriana, by the way." 200 hours later, Adriana turned Lisa over to the mirror. "I didn't jump right in. That's enough for your first makeover. Something tells me you won't stop there." Lisa opened her eyes and almost cried out. It was her, and it wasn't her. Her hair had turned a very dark chocolate color. But when I move it, there are strands of light color peeking through here and there, a couple shades lighter. It makes it look like a really thick head of hair. Adriana had them done, and now they were shoulder length and very successfully covered the ears. The eyebrows were terminated as if they were the natural shade of your lashes, as if you had thickened them. I didn't put makeup on you. In the first place, it would be more of a shock to you. And secondly, I think you look great. Lisa finally got some air. And this won't wash off. Adriana laughed. Well, of course not. But I would advise you to come back at least once a month to renew the light. Lisa stepped out of the salon and saw Charles emerge from the building across the street. She smiled, waved at him, and got into her car. Lisa herself did not know why her soul sang like that. Lisa entered the house. Apparently Cindy, along with the children, had plotted to blow it past. Kevin whizzed by. Somewhere in the other room, Lena was squealing and Cindy was laughing. Then Kevin came back. "Hi, Mom." He stood there staring at her, stunned. He was called out of the room several times. He didn't answer. Then Kathy's head appeared in the doorway. "Hi, Kathy." She didn't finish. She looked at her mother as if she was seeing her for the first time. Cindy, having waited for no one, also appeared in the hallway, followed by the youngest members of the two families. Cindy exhaled noisily. Wow. Lisa was getting a little uncomfortable with the feeding. "Is anyone going to feed me?" Everyone made a lot of noise. Kevin and Cindy rushed into the kitchen, and Kathy came over to her. "Mommy, you look beautiful." "Thank you, my sunshine." Dinner was a lively affair. It was probably the very first night that no one remembered Sebastian once. As soon as Lisa entered the office, there was complete silence. "Good morning." Cindy had, of course, warned her that there would be a reaction, but Lisa had never imagined it would be this strong. Until lunchtime, her coworkers only squinted at her and occasionally asked her something work-related. And just before lunch, their famous heartthrob, Robert, approached her. "Lisa's, I was wondering if we could have lunch together." She looked up at him in surprise. Robert had never liked her, despite the fact that the entire female population, the offices, those under 30, just slept and saw themselves next to Robert. And he was really good, tall, moderately muscular, always dressed in style, and in a way that emphasized his masculinity. And he was also pompous and shallow at work. He did his job and didn't care about anything else. But that's Lisa's opinion. "Thank you, Robert. I'm fine. I'm having lunch alone." She smiled charmingly at him and inwardly froze with horror. How could she do such a thing? Such a handsome man, just for paying attention to her, and therefore giving her confidence. She must not only dine with him, but also pay for those lunches. Robert stared at her in amazement. The coworkers chuckled quietly. It was especially funny to those whom Robert had already dumped. He walked over to his desk and sat down. It was obvious that the young man was at a loss and just didn't know what to do next. Lisa had already gotten up to go to lunch when the secretary entered the office. "Lisa, you are in charge." Lisa was scared out of habit and almost sat down. But then she thought, why should she be afraid? Her work is in order. No one's private life should be anyone's business. Rick called. "Sit down, Lisa." I didn't. He asked me to come in. Lisa sat down, not understanding what the man in charge wanted from her. "Lisa, I've been keeping an eye on my employees. And you know, you've always made me happy. And when have you ever not been broken by family problems? I'm sorry, but I'm aware of that. So it hasn't affected your work in any way. I realized you were exactly the person I needed." She asked. "I'm sorry, but I'm a little confused." "Needed for what?" "My deputy took a well-deserved vacation. I can't do it alone, of course. No one wants to live on the job, and you have all the prerequisites to take this position." Lisa was a little taken aback. Just like that, to be deputy director. At least she had the education to do it. But for some reason, she hadn't even thought that she could really make a career out of it before. Now it's right in front of her. Grab it and enjoy it. She refused. "Rick, I really appreciate the offer, and I know I can do it. But in case you haven't forgotten, I have 3 children. To give you an answer so I don't let you down in the future, I need to talk to my parents. You realize if they can't take on at least a junior, I can't take you up on your offer. That's what I like about you. You're sensible and sober, and that's worth a lot. And I'm letting you go home tonight. Work out your problems. Talk to your parents. I'll see you tomorrow with an answer." Lisa caught Cindy packing. "Where are you going?" "Var, I'm sorry. My husband's coming back. I'll visit you often, but you know he won't understand my absence." "What's wrong with you? You're all disheveled." "Yeah, I came in early. Lisa told me about the boss's offer." Cindy reached out. What can I say? Girl, I believe in you. I'm sure everything's gonna be okay now. The only thing left to do is to believe in yourself. Lisa looked up at her friend. I do. I almost do. They hugged goodbye. The most important thing is that you go like this. Don't give yourself time to beat yourself up and dig into yourself, Lisa laughed. So how are you doing with your friend Charles? Cindy gave her a sly look. Speaking of which, why did he call me and ask me a bunch of stupid questions that were all about you? Lisa was confused. Maybe what she wrote is the ramblings of a deranged person, and he wants to make sure so he can send her on to treatment. I ran away, my friend. In the evening, the children gathered in the kitchen. Mom, what's the occasion? Yeah, Grandma and Grandpa are coming over. Kevin looked at Kathy, then at Mom. But they don't know about Dad. They'll find out. Are you guys gonna help me or not? We're all going together. They had just had time to set the table when the doorbell rang. Miranda immediately began to reread it. Jesus, it's only been a little while, and you were waving like that. And Daddy looked at Lisa. Daughter, I can't even recognize you. What's the matter with you? A new life. He chuckled and walked into the room. Oh, we're getting a royal welcome today. Miranda turned to Lisa with her daughter. We forgot something. The woman was frantically going over birthdays and other dates in her head. Mommy, come in. You haven't forgotten anything. Everyone sat down at the table. The youngest, as usual, climbed into grandfather's lap, smiled. What about champagne? David looked at his daughter more carefully. I know you too well. Tell me what happened. But Miranda intervened. Where's Sebastian? He hasn't been home lately. That's no way for a father of 3 to behave. Kathy started crying. Kevin took his mother's hand. Lisa stroked his head. Thank you. It's okay. Mom, Dad, Sebastian left us. David quacked. Even slammed his fist down on the table like he killed a cockroach. Miranda clutched at her heart. Mom, it's okay. We're getting used to living without him. I've gathered you for an entirely different reason. The woman looked at her daughter in amazement. How can you say that? You have to bring your husband back into the family. David wrinkled his nose, but didn't interrupt his wife. Mom, I'm not going to bring anyone back. It was his wish. He's happily living with some new woman. I filed for a divorce today, but I need your help. Daughter, you know that. I was offered a new position today. She said Daddy was admiring her. He said his daughter would show everyone. And gray mice are capable of something, especially since she looks different today. She doesn't look like a gray mouse at all. Her parents offered to move in with her for the cold season. The kids need to cook. And it's getting dark early. Mom, Dad, I never dreamed you'd help me so much. The next visit to Charles was on a weekend. Clara looked at the 2 scribbled notebooks with a smile. Charles was right. As soon as she wrote her problem, her fear, on a blank sheet of paper, it didn't seem so big. Charles didn't have to wait this time. He was waiting for her in his office. Lisa, I have a suggestion. Let's talk somewhere else today. She froze. I can see how scared you are. What is it? And she laughed out of the blue. It's my surprise. It's my pleasure. They were sitting in a cafe overlooking the park. Autumn is a beautiful couple. Charles looked at her. You've changed a lot. And not just in appearance. You know, I even regret resisting Cindy. The man smiled. Cindy, you can't resist. You must realize that. Sooner or later, we were destined to meet. Tell me, I've read your diary. Is it true she saved you like that? Yes, I myself still remember her screams and her enemies lying there. Of course, it's impossible to describe in words. No, you're wrong about that. You write in such vivid language. It's as if I imagined myself there. I even had an itch to break up the whole bunch of assholes. No way. I didn't even realize I'd written it, to be honest. I wasn't thinking on purpose. Lisa, I was wondering if I could show your diary to someone. He's some kind of rich philanthropist, writer, hermit. I can think of a lot of other epithets for him. I promise, if you don't want to, we'll stop anytime. Stop that. You know, your notes would make a very good book, a guide to action for women who've lost themselves, written in artistic, very clear language. But I am a person far from all this. That's why I would like to show your writings to the pros. Lisa was expecting anything but this. Oh, Cindy, didn't she put the idea in Charles' head? It doesn't look like much, though. It's good to change, so change everything. Let's give it a try. This is great. That's just great. Lisa, let's use the first name, and we should drink champagne for that. After the cafe, they took a long walk. Charles told how little always stood up for justice, got for it in kindergarten, at school, and at home. Lisa laughed. Did they teach you to be fair? No, on the contrary. I guess I don't have a good temper. They tell me. And I'm still, I think, razor sharp. Say, Lisa, could we go to the movies or the theater with you? It's so hard to meet a woman who's interesting to talk to. I've had a lot of women come to see me. But frankly, I think of them all as patients. I can't think of you. I've never been to the movies. Clara wondered. When had she ever been to the movies? Probably when she and Sebastian didn't even have Kevin yet. I haven't been to a movie in a long time. It's beautiful. No, not that you haven't been to a movie in a long time. It's that I'd love to take you. One evening, Miranda asked Lisa if Sebastian had called. Lisa turned to her in surprise. No, why would he call? Well, anyway, I met him by chance yesterday at the mall. He was with his girlfriend, but there was nowhere to hide, so he had to say hello. So it's his what? No. You know, I felt sorry for him. No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that. He was confused, scared. Lisa was about to answer, but then she didn't. She knew perfectly well that her mother was worried about her. That's what a mother is. Charles had disappeared. I don't know where. After that trip to the movies, he brought her home and kissed her. She responded with such fervor that there was no way they could break up. Apparently, the man is all the same smart, weighed all the pros and cons, decided that 3 children for him too much jam, blamed him. She was sure it wasn't because she was a gray mouse. The doorbell rang. The mother looked up. Who is it so late? Lisa went to open it. But as soon as she opened the door, she was surrounded. So she was frightened. Lisa, he takes over everything, and the proofreading and the publishing. He's sure it's going to be a real bestseller. Charles, put me down immediately. Charles set it down on the floor and looked at the household, who were speaking of the commotion with embarrassment. David looked at Charles. I understand we need to set the table for tea. The young man will tell us who he is and why he is carrying our daughter around like that. An hour later, the father paced nervously around the room. I knew my daughter was being watched by everyone. But Lisa, we are all with you. Keep that in mind. She was confused. Actually, her profession doesn't tolerate any philosophizing. Everything has to be precisely calculated and measured. And here it was. On the eve of the presentation, she was worried. As she never worried, never thought of anything better. How to take a pen, a clean notebook, and write a diary of a single woman. Part 2. Really, it didn't work to start writing. The doorbell rang. Sebastian stood on the doorstep. How many times had she imagined this meeting, but she was still confused. Can I come out? Come in, of course. But the children aren't here yet. I wanted to talk to you. To me. But I thought we worked things out. I gave up child support. I gave up the house. What other questions? He looked at her in surprise. Have you changed? The teachers were good. Would you like some tea? Yes, if I may. He came to the kitchen. You changed the furniture in the bar. For some reason, it was nice to see his changed face. Yeah, it wasn't fancy. It's old. It's expensive. Well, I make a good living. He scrutinized his ex-wife. Something about her that made it hard for him to talk. And then he realized there was no sadness in her eyes, and she looked better than when they lived together. Lisa, I don't know how to start this conversation. I just came to ask you out. What about your Betty? Sort of. Sebastian wrinkled his nose. Betty wasn't quite what she was at first. So you decided to go back to where you were safe and happy. Don't twist Lisa's arm. No way. And yet I can't. I don't have any time. I have a presentation tomorrow. He didn't let her finish. He got excited. So am I. I mean, we'll be there. Don't you think that's a sign? Why are you going? I mean, you've never been a big fan of this kind of thing. But Betty, she loves being the center of attention. Sebastian's totally embarrassed. Sebastian, go home. The kids will be here soon. I don't want them to be upset. He obediently got up. Well, I'll see you tomorrow. She shrugged uncertainly. Lisa, in a silver slinky dress with her hair in large curls, sat in front of the mirror. Adriana was putting on the finishing touches, makeup. Every time I start doing you, I get tons of new ideas. It's a shame you can't do it all in one look. Lisa laughed. What kind of person would I make? Adriana looked at her carefully. Tell me, what's eating you? My ex-husband came by. He wants to come back, but he's going to tonight's event with his own. He knows you wrote Lisa's notes. No, you don't. Then be happy. Let him fully realize who he's lost. Lisa looked at Adriana. Are you conniving? Adriana grinned. No, fair. Cindy came in. It's all ready for you later. The crowd must be overwhelming. Lisa looked out and recoiled. And I'm not going in there. Yes, you are. I'm all thirsty for your autograph. Do you even know that the book sold out in 2 days? Cindy and Adriana literally shoved her into Charles' arms. Excuse me. They walked out into the hall to the guests, who were already enjoying appetizers and drinks to loud applause. Just a second. Clamoring. But then she throws her head back. She's a winner. And that says it all. Sebastian, why are you standing there like a statue? Let's get closer. I need an autograph. Betty tugged impatiently at his sleeve. He finally snapped out of his stupor. Oh, come on. You want to go? What? What kind of tone is that? What do you think you're doing? He turned to Betty and said, you want to go. But this is Lisa, my ex-wife. Betty was like walking into ice water. Somebody's been eating hogwash. You said yourself she works in computer technology. She does. This must have been a recreational activity. And you didn't know. No, Betty didn't know. To bickering. They didn't notice Charles approaching them. Lisa was immediately followed by her parent Cindy. And of course, Kathy's children, with her usual spontaneity, said, Daddy, didn't you believe me that Auntie was bad? See, she's hurting you too. Lisa looked at her ex-husband. They talked to her and decided she had to do it. Get rid of the guilt. The one major feeling that almost killed her. It's her fault her husband left her. Good evening, Sebastian. Turned around. Hello. Betty was silent. Lisa smiled charmingly at her. You wanted an autograph. Let me sign it. She held out her hand for the book Betty was holding. The latter handed it back to her machine, then tossed it away to be avoided. Sebastian looked at Lisa gloomily. What has become of you? Were you not so angry, so cruel? That's Sebastian. It was not at all pleasant to realize that someone who had stomped someone into the dirt had not broken down, but had risen up. He looked around. Everyone makes mistakes. I made a mistake too. I want to go back. We have 3 kids, and you know they need a father. What's that all of a sudden? You didn't need a father all this time, and now you do. You're confusing the two. You're the one who thinks you have the right to choose when you want kids and when you don't. Lisa, don't you dare talk to me like that. Charles felt the Larry's hand shake and squeezed it tighter. She has to do it herself. Why? Because he couldn't find the right words. Kevin stepped forward. I can't yell at Mom. You've already turned the kids against me. Sebastian, why are you saying all this? You've never been like this before. He stopped talking. For a while, they all stood in silence. Finally, Sebastian looked for the first time at the man his ex-wife was holding under his arm. Then his gaze shifted back to Lisa. "You mean you're not coming back? You don't want our family to be reunited?" Lisa smiled. "No. Sebastian, no. We don't have a family. Not for a long time." She turned around, and they walked toward the stage. Sebastian caught his ex-wife's mother by the arm. "Miranda, you've always been smart and calm. Why don't you talk to your daughter? We should be together." The woman looked at him. "No, Sebastian, it's too late. And you know, I'm glad you're divorced." That shook Lisa up. Charles literally made her believe in herself. "I'm much more comfortable with Charles as a son-in-law." "They're what? She's what?" "Yes, Sebastian, Lisa is getting married. And I'm sure that husband will never say that she is a gray mouse who is nothing." Miranda slowly walked down the hall. Sebastian watched her silently, and just yesterday, he was sure that he would be welcomed with open arms, that he would be put in the most comfortable chair and loved even more. But it all went wrong. He turned around and rushed out of the auditorium. Now he had to make peace with Betty. He can't go live with his father. He doesn't want to talk to him anyway. After Sebastian dumped Lisa. And if he finds out what happened, he won't think he's his son at all. Sebastian breathed in the cold air. An advertisement caught his eye. They were recruiting specialists for a new testing plant in Siberia. He grinned, ripped off his license plate, shoved his hands deep in his pockets, and strode down the street. Any other woman would have been hysterical, but Lisa didn't even cry. When the door closed behind Sebastian forever, only all the days after he'd left, she'd been tormented by a strange sense of guilt. According to the law of the genre, she should be feeling something else entirely. For example, self-pity and hatred for her husband. But no, Lisa's soul was completely calm, and only sometimes a shallow calm ran through the sea. That unpleasant feeling. She kept thinking about the fact that Sebastian would not have left if she had. And then there was a dead end, because the mind refused to answer the question what I had to do to make him stay. All the last few days, Lisa had been trying to answer that question for herself. She realized that her own life and the fate of her children depended on it. The young woman mentally tried to solve the intricate crossword puzzles, patiently going over in her mind every day, which was remembered by something. The small car her parents had given her for her 30th birthday moved confidently through the streets of the evening crash city. It seemed that she was now driving not a stylish hatchback of obscenely bright red color, but her own life, and everything depended on which way she turned at the nearest intersection. Her hand unconsciously reached for the control panel, and a life-affirming tune blared from the speakers. Lisa began to sing along with the singer in some wild performance. The woman did not have vocal data, but it did not prevent her from singing heartily and even making risky vocalizations. Probably, her miniatures were too loud because passing cars persistently honked. But these signs of attention only added to the excitement. "Guys, I'm fine. I'm fine." From the speakers poured booming sounds, and the accident regretfully said aloud, "Good, but not good enough. I never thought I was capable of doing such a thing. But I'm ready to do it again, and I don't care about public opinion. That's the way I've had to keep it all my life. I've had to look up to the best. I don't want to be second best anymore. I'm gonna prove to him that I'm worth something." This vivid monologue, worthy of the best stage, was addressed to Sebastian. These words must have been on my heart for a long time. But after they were voiced, Lisa felt relieved. Only a sense of her own guilt. Pity for the little business trips from behind hid in a far corner of her soul. "It's okay, I'll deal with you. I'm strong." Father from young nails brought up in his daughter the best qualities. He often told his daughter it's only when she's young. Their life seems endless, and by old age, people consider every day they live as happiness. So try to do good and useful deeds. She didn't understand the meaning of those words. "Daddy, why do that? To keep every day in your memory. You'll remember it later in life. This day I helped an old lady, and the next day I saved a bird." Daddy, when you cheat, is it a good deed or a bad deed? Such questions of his daughter put David in a deadlock, but he never avoided answering. In general, Lisa thought he was very lucky to have his parents. They were the best people on the whole earth, and every day of her distant childhood was filled with their care and warmth. Funnel was the late child in the family. David and Miranda were already at a ripe old age when they decided to join their fates. Both of them had the first unsuccessful experience of family life, so they met for almost 3 years before applying to the registry office. To the appearance of a new addition to the family, the spouses were also preparing very responsibly. The future mother strictly followed all the recommendations of doctors, and the future father attended special courses, although at that time to such events men were very skeptical. At work, some men even frankly laughed at him. Our future father is well done. Maybe and give birth together with his wife will go. If I have to, I will. And there's nothing wrong with that. At that time, giving birth together was a novelty among us, so not everyone welcomed such an undertaking, and the male half of the population was outraged by this prospect. Sometimes both husbands and fathers gave such a forecast about this imported innovation that it would not take root in our country. They are all going crazy in Europe in pursuit of equality and freedom. We have other traditions, and everything is clearly distributed. Women give birth, and men bring up and earn money. Although one could argue with the last statement, no one dared to deny the inviolability of tradition. Therefore, David's bold decision remained unfulfilled, and the moment of accidental birth father did not see. However, this circumstance did not reduce the joy of the newly minted father on the last cash. And then the salary was given once every few months. The man hired artists from a house of culture and brought them in a broken-down Jiggly right to the house. The mini concert under the windows of the medical facility made a strong impression not only on the young mothers, but also on the staff. Some nurses even wept. From excess of feelings, such love is only shown in movies. What a good man. Of course, Lisa understandably does not remember the events of those days, but my mother loved to tell this touching story. And each time there were new details of her first days of life. When they brought you for the first time for feeding, I was even scared. That day 8 boys were born and only 1 girl. All the boys are so big-faced and screaming at the top of their lungs. My little girl looks like a Zamora in front of them. You didn't even scream. You promised like a kitten. Although Miranda spoke fondly of her daughter's shortcomings. In her early days, Lisa was not exactly pleased that her mother compared her to an abandoned kitten. It was only later, when she herself gave birth to her first son, Kevin, it became clear that for the mother the appearance of the child does not matter. But life is a very harsh thing, and it does not spare even small children. If for her parents the girl was a miracle, people around her did not think so. The first time she faced injustice in kindergarten. That day is forever. In memory, on the eve of the first holiday of spring, children prepared gifts for their moms. In addition to cute crafts, it was decided to please women with a small concert. Educators put together a program and engaged in the distribution of numbers. Then, for the first time in my conscious life, showed initiative. Let me learn a song or a poem. I'm good at memorizing. One of the teachers looked at the child strangely. It's not enough to memorize well. You have to have a pretty face. How about you? Lisa saw another teacher pushing her colleague hard in the side. What are you talking about in front of the child? Nothing out of the ordinary. I'm just used to telling the truth. Let her get used to it. She'll have to hear many times in the future that she looks like a mouse. So gray and unassuming. Of course, Lisa, her 3.5 years old, did not understand the whole meaning of what the educators said, but her memory was really good. When her mother came to pick her up in the kindergarten, she right in front of the teacher who condemned the appearance, the girl recounted everything from herself. The girl added, I was not even given a poem. All the other children were given to other children. And I speak well and sing loudly. And Kelly has a cough, but she's beautiful. And now she will sing the lead song. Lisa cried with resentment. The teacher was ready to fall through the floor in shame. Miranda tried to speak calmly, though her voice trembled with indignation. What kind of castings are you doing here? Who allowed you to cripple the psyche of children? I won't let it go. I'll go to the education department tomorrow. Lisa and her mother were not present at the party. The teacher, who had distinguished herself by her unworthy behavior, didn't show up in their group anymore either. One could rejoice at the triumph of justice, but they still tried to hide behind the backs of their comrades. When it came to important events, she remembered the first day of school life. By this time, the girl has already internalized the rules of human society and did not seek to demonstrate her talents. She by habit dissolved into the crowd of peers because in the general mass were not so noticeable her chicken ears and colorless eyebrows on her freckled face. The ceremonial ruler passed without a hitch, and she joined everyone in beating her hands joyfully. When a tall high school student carried on his shoulder a first grader who had a symbolic bell in the shape of a big bell in her hand. Of course, in her heart Lisa envied this girl because she really wanted to be in her place. But she realized that with her unattractive appearance it was impossible. When the children went to their classrooms for their first lesson, an unfamiliar boy from the senior class, pointing his finger at her, yelled, "Guys, watch a walking horror movie." Miranda was very afraid for her daughter, but she said with a nonchalant look, "Mom, the boy probably wanted to call me a contestant because I have really big ears. He just mixed up the words. Don't worry, I'm used to it, and don't take offense." Lisa overheard her mother telling her father about the outrageous incident. "David, I'm so scared about the funnel and why everyone's picking on it. Looks pretty normal for a kid to me." "Miranda, don't worry. Your Soar Lisa is the best and the most beautiful, and she's a strong-willed character for a 6-year-old. That's what scares me the most. I'm afraid she won't become violent. There are many such stories when childhood complexes lead to terrible consequences in adulthood. I'm sure Lisa won't have complexes. She is a very bright girl and quickly learned the rules of the game. Appearance is a matter of time. We will see with you the miracle of transformation of an ugly duckling into a beautiful swan." Unfortunately, her father's predictions did not come true, and Kelly never became a beauty. But her unassuming appearance no longer frightened anyone. And by and large, everyone at school did not pay attention to it. The fact that the girl was excellent in all directions, she was sent from the school to the Olympiads in various subjects, and she always returned with a victory. Especially, she remembered the day of the next triumph, when she in the intellectual competition left far behind even high school students. But it was a pure victory. That day was one of the happiest in Lisa's life. The 8th grade student became the pride of the school. She was shown on TV programs and even written about in the regional newspaper. But fame is a short-term phenomenon, and she understood it perfectly well. She also realized finally that intelligence and knowledge are even more important than appearance. On the day of receipt of the certificate, no one remembered the Wrights Reno appearance teachers predicted her promising future. Classmates with undisguised envy looked in her direction. The first beauty of the class, whose certificate was a solid 3, deliberately loudly said, "Lucky some people. She herself is nothing." And it was her who got the gold certificate. Who's the unlucky one? Lisa earned her gold honestly, and you got a second-hand certificate because you're like the dragonfly in Krylov's fable. I envy you. Lisa will be welcomed with open arms at any university. How would you like to get into any mediocre college? The parents watched their daughter from the sidelines, and both cried tears of happiness. "Miranda, what a wonderful daughter we've raised." So many nice words have been said about Lisa today. I must tell you, dear wife, that I have never been as happy as I am today. David, today is also the happiest day of my life. Not even on our wedding day have I felt so good in my heart. There was one more person, or rather a girl, who was sincerely happy about Lisa's successes and sad that she would no longer meet her in the school corridor at the big recess. Such feelings on that sunny June day were felt by Cindy, for whom Kelly was even more than a friend. All people fall into two categories. Some are genuinely happy about their friends' successes. Others only pay lip service to such feelings, but deep down they envy and dream of revenge on the lucky ones. Lisa had her enemies too, but all the attempts of detractors to put the excellent girl off balance failed. And when she accidentally discovered a mouse in her school backpack, contrary to the expectations of the organizers of this action, she did not run in. She put the animal in the palm of her hand and even stroked the mouse on its back. Subsequently, the mouse was released by Lisa to freedom. Some giggled behind the girl's back. The fisherman sees the fisherman and the mouse smells the mouse. In simple terms, a man will not hurt his own. Next time, one of the jokers smeared the chair where the best student sat with carpenter's glue. But this adventure didn't work either. Lisa noticed the suspicious glint from afar, and by the tense look of one of her classmates, she unmistakably deduced the author of the prank and addressed him with a request. "Robert, your chair's a little higher. I'm not comfortable in this one. Let's switch." The boy blushed, which the teacher took as a sign of shyness. If a girl asks, a real man has to give in. After that, Robert had nowhere to retreat to, and he sat glued to the table for a whole horn. Then his friends long held him off the furniture, but still his pants could not be saved. After lessons, the Cossacks were waiting for Lisa near the school. "You think you're so smart?" Lisa laughed in the face of the Cossacks' loser. "You know about the law of boomerang. That's what you got. You're laughing too hard. Sit down. Next time, we'll have a different conversation. Consider it your last days, and I've turned on the Kozak counter with your math skills. You are sure to say goodbye." The girl laughed again and headed home. She heard Robert shouted after her and clicked. "The one who laughs last always wins. Now it's my turn." In 5 minutes, Lisa had forgotten about her classmates' threats, but 2 days later she had to remember Robert's words. In order to save time, Lisa, like many kids in her neighborhood, walked through a small park. It wasn't a popular place with the townspeople, so everyone tried to get past it as quickly as possible. Lisa also quickened her step when she found herself in the park. She noticed from afar a group of teenagers near the fountain, which hadn't been working for a long time. A group of teenagers. It was too late to retreat, and Lisa didn't allow herself to show any weakness. She quickened her pace even more, hoping to get past the enemy cordon. But Cossacks blocked her way. "Well, forces, who are we going to laugh at?" The crowd of spectators cheered. "Maybe we could bathe her in the fountain. But it doesn't work. Then how shall we punish her? Guys, I've got an exclusive for our best student. You see, there are buildings with the letters P and G. And G, Robert, you're the man. People are hungry for a colorful spectacle. By the time the accident happened, I realized I should have gotten out of here. It was too late." Teenagers surrounded her, then took her under the arms and dragged her through a street toilet. She screamed at one of her abusers, even kicked him in the eye. But the forces were clearly unequal. From somewhere off to the side came Kaya's girlish scream. Then there was the sound of a heavy blow, followed by another scream. But now it was one of the vigilant hordes. Lisa didn't have time to realize anything as the battle cry sounded again, and another offender began to writhing on the ground in pain. The rest of the trio slipped away from the scene. Bavaria looked, round your eyes, at the girl about 12 to 13 years old and could not believe that 2 defeated opponents is her handiwork. The young judoka held out her hand. Cindy paired up and accepted the friendly gesture as, "This is where I from school happen to be. I always walk through the park. So, anyway, I heard you screaming from a distance and rushed over to help. Say, Cindy, where did you learn to do that?" Suddenly the girl was embarrassed. "My daddy taught me. He used to be a champion. But then he broke his arm and had to retire from big sports. He's a coach now. I've been training for 6 years. I'm already a blue belt, and soon I'll be a brown belt." Although Lisa didn't understand anything about sports ethics and martial arts, she stretched out meaningfully. "Great. The girl named Cindy was pleased with the praise. "I've been wanting to meet you for a long time, but I've been hesitant to approach you. And now I'm here. Forgive me for asking why you hesitated to approach me. You're an honor student, and you're a year older than me. Cindy, you're adorable. Does age and other little things matter when people are friends?" The enchanted girl looked at Lisa. "You'll be friends with me. Of course, now I just have to repay you for saving me. You realize I don't mean money and stuff. Maybe you're having trouble in some subject." Cindy jumped for joy. "I'm failing math. I can't get my head around cosine and minus." "Oh, don't feel bad. I'll help you. We can start math class today." From that day on, Cindy became a frequent visitor to the powerhouse. The girls worked out at 2 o'clock every day, and then drank tea with delicious cones that Miranda prepared for them. But most of all was happy David. "It's very good that you have a real friend." The girl corrected her father. "Dad, you mean friend, not daughter. I said what I meant. You see, those words with the same root have slightly different meanings. You can hang out with a friend, talk to her, share your feelings, but only a friend can protect you. This girl, Cindy, is a true friend. I hope I'm not wrong about her." David made the right prediction about Cindy. The girl who grew up in an athletic family had strong-willed qualities and was always open to contact. She never paid out herself, although she also had something to be proud of. Soon about the girlfriends began to talk about a pair of goose. Yes, Gagarin, though both God has offended in terms of beauty, but the ambition above the roof. The girls did not pay any attention to the words. All the more they did not feel inferior. Thanks to good upbringing and clear understanding of life goals, both schoolgirls had already been formed as individuals. Therefore, they treated such conversations exactly as an adult perceives children's mischief. The only thing they regretted was the upcoming separation. But the girls found a good way to remove this obstacle. Lisa applied to Baumanka to specialize in software engineering and nanotechnology. These were completely new directions, and many guys dreamed of getting a profession of the future. That's why, for the first time in her life, Lisa had to fight for a place with equals, because among the applicants there were almost only medalists. There was a treacherous moment when the girl almost gave up. She called Cindy to get some advice from NATO. "You have no idea how many medalists there are per square meter. I'm even scared." Her friend answered her calmly. "It's normal to be scared. It's bad when people panic. You sound like you're on the verge of despair. I just don't understand why you're panicking. I'm scared too, when I go on the tatami and I don't know my opponent. But that's the philosophy behind any fight. Overcome fear and win. In your case, it's much easier, because you have to overcome your own fear." That's it. Lisa successfully passed the additional tests and was admitted to the faculty. The first year in any educational institution is considered the most difficult, so she spent all her time studying. But the workload, as the student of a prestigious university liked to say, did not prevent her from talking to her friend once a week. During hour-long conversations on the phone, the girls told each other about the main events, shared their plans. In one of these sessions, Cindy joyfully told Lisa, "I decided to enter Sekhanov at the Faculty of Sports Psychology. So very soon we will be able to see each other in person." "That's great. But what about big sports? You dreamed of winning championships, right?" "Girl, you're the one who told me I had to be realistic about what I could do. So I did, and I realized that playing for school is one thing, but playing for the country is another responsibility. In short, I'm not up to the highest level, and the term of sports life is too short. So I decided to devote myself to another useful business. After all, to train future champions is also an honorable business." Although in the voice of Cindy slipped sad notes, it was clear that this was the girl's final decision. Lisa decided to cheer her up. "Perhaps it's true. You have to plan your life with an eye to the future. And I'm very happy for you." Cindy got into university on her first try, although the girls' grades weren't very good. But the merits in sports played a decisive role. This period was distinguished by another surprising event that brought the girls together. Between their parents, there was something very similar to friendship. After all, common concerns and experiences unite people, like many girls her age. Lisa also secretly dreamed of a big and beautiful love. In her school years, she read popular novels, in which there was more tragedy than happiness. Then for days, the girl walked under the impression of the book she had read. True, she did not share her experiences with anyone. Even with Cindy, she did not speak on the subject. And the reason for this reticence was her appearance. Although Lisa got used to the fact that everyone considered her a dunce, and her being did not want to put up with this state of affairs. Therefore, the girl began to experiment a little bit with cosmetics, and it turned out pretty good. Cindy was very well versed in makeup, and the lessons of her friend went in favor of a moderate appearance. After entering the university, the girl forgot about the fact that her appearance does not meet the standards of beauty. In the first place, it was not up to it here. In the second place, most of the female students were similar to Lisa, and many girls wore glasses with reinforced lenses. It was this circumstance that helped to finally forget about her disadvantage. During one of the meetings with a friend, Kelly decided to touch on the taboo topic. Cindy, you probably have a lot of suitors on the course. You're so fashionable, and you dress boldly. The friend looked at Lisa strangely. Lisa, I'm surprised at your naivety. You're only a year older than me. At our age, a year doesn't matter. That's true. But I didn't mention age by accident. Haven't you realized that life is basically a struggle for a place in the sun? It's a natural selection process set in motion by nature itself. You know very well from school biology that the strongest survive in this process. Otherwise, they just get crushed. In order to get to the finish line, you can use any means. That is why mimicry is widespread in living nature at all its levels, including human society. Lisa looked at her friend for a long time with wide-open eyes and could not come to herself from surprise. Was she really the stubby girl who was good at wrestling? No. Now she saw before her an educated, self-confident girl who could philosophize freely. Cindy, I never cease to be amazed at you. Where did you get all this? You wouldn't believe it, but it's your school. I used to catch every word you said on the fly. And you've convinced me day in and day out that knowledge is the basis of everything. And of course, my future profession has a lot to live up to. Yeah, well, I'm in a good place when it comes to dates. Why did you ask me that? I don't know. No reason, I guess. I mean, at our age, you're supposed to have a boyfriend. Cindy remarked to Lisa with winning irritation. I don't recognize you. Where's your old confidence and optimism? What's age got to do with it? Lisa tried to control her excitement, but the excess of feelings and did not allow her to control herself. Cindy realized that without a good shake, she wouldn't say anything. She roused herself with a battle cry and playfully put her friend on her shoulder blades. But honestly, it's funny to watch you stay like a gymnasium girl. She laughed, and the inner stiffness disappeared. You picked up an unfortunate comparison, modern gymnasium girl, and anyone 100 points ahead will give. I just used to think that relations with the opposite sex are, to put it mildly, a closed topic for me.